What if I told you that every time you ask ChatGPT a question, you're contributing to what could be the biggest energy crisis of our time? And what if the solution to this crisis involves restarting a nuclear reactor that was shut down after the worst nuclear accident in the US? This sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now. Tech giants like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are quietly making billion-dollar bets on nuclear power. And it's all because of AI. But here's the crazy part. They're not just building new nuclear plants, no. Microsoft literally signed a deal to restart 3 Mile Island, the site of that 1979 nuclear meltdown. Why would they do something that sounds so risky? Well, the answer reveals a hidden crisis that threatens to derail the AI revolution entirely. The hidden energy crisis. Let me start with a question. How much energy do you think it takes to train an AI model like GPT-4? Take a guess. Maybe a few hours of your laptop's power consumption? Maybe a day's worth of electricity for your house? No, it takes somewhere between 10 to 100 megawatt hours. That's enough electricity to power hundreds of homes for an entire day, just to train one AI model. But that's just the beginning. Every single conversation you have with ChatGPT consumes energy. According to OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman, each response uses about 0.34 watt hours. That might sound tiny, but here's where it gets interesting. ChatGPT handles 2.5 billion requests every single day. And the next generation of AI models, they could use 40 times more energy per query. If we upgraded all of ChatGPT to GPT-5 tomorrow, we'd need enough electricity to power 1.5 million homes in US just to keep the chatbot running. But wait, there's more. This is just one AI service. What about all the other AI companies training massive models? What about the AI features being added to every single app and service you use? The numbers become absolutely staggering. Global data center energy consumption is projected to nearly triple by 2030, from about 340 terawatt hours to 945 terawatt hours. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to the entire electricity consumption of Japan. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, recently sounded the alarm, saying, "This is a scale of industry I've never seen in my life." By 2030, data centers could require up to 96 gigawatts of additional power, threatening to consume nearly the entirety of national energy generation. So here's the million-dollar question. Where is all this energy going to come from? Why renewables aren't enough? Now you might be thinking, can't we just build more solar panels and wind turbines? That's what I thought too, but it turns out there's a fundamental problem. AI data centers are like that friend who never sleeps. They're running 24/7 processing requests, training models, and consuming massive amounts of electricity every single second. They can't just pause and wait for sun to come out or the wind to blow. Solar panels have a capacity factor of about 25%, meaning they only produce electricity 25% of the time. Wind turbines, about 35%. But nuclear power, it delivers an incredible 92.5 capacity factor, basically running at full power almost all the time. As Anna Erickson, a nuclear engineering professor at Georgia Tech, puts it, data centers operate non-stop and require a consistent electricity supply. They cannot afford to halt operations due to a lack of wind or sunlight. But there's another problem with renewables that most people don't realize. Building enough solar and wind to power all these AI data centers would require absolutely massive amounts of land. And we'd still need backup power for when they're not generating electricity. A single nuclear power plant, on the other hand, can generate around 100 megawatts on a tiny footprint, enough to power 5 large data centers. It's like comparing a smartphone to a room-sized computer from 1960s. The nuclear revival story. This brings us to one of the most incredible corporate reversals in modern history. For decades, nuclear power was basically radioactive kryptonite for corporate America. After 3 Mile Island in 1979 and Chernobyl in 1986, most companies wouldn't touch nuclear with a 10-foot pole. Let me tell you the 3 Mile Island story because it's absolutely crucial to understanding what's happening today. It was 4 a.m. on March 28, 1979. Workers at the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant in Pennsylvania were dealing with what started as a minor problem. Some pumps had stopped working. But then things went horribly wrong. A relief valve got stuck open and cooling water started leaking out for over 2 hours. The reactor core began to overheat, leading to a partial meltdown. Now, here's the thing, nobody actually died from the accident, but the psychological impact was enormous. It became the worst nuclear disaster in the US, and it effectively killed new nuclear construction in the US for decades. The 3 Mile Island plant had 2 reactors. Unit 2, where the accident happened, was permanently shut down. But Unit 1, it actually kept running safely for another 40 years until it was shut down in 2019. Not because of safety issues, but because it couldn't compete economically with cheap natural gas. Fast forward to September 2024, and here comes one of the most shocking announcements in energy history. Microsoft's billion-dollar bet. Microsoft, the company who invested in OpenAI, announced they were paying $1.6 billion to restart 3 Mile Island. Yes, the same 3 Mile Island that we were talking about. They signed a 20-year deal to get all the electricity from Unit 1 to power their AI data centers. Joe Dominguez, the CEO of Constellation Energy, he said before it was prematurely shut down due to unfavorable economics, this plant was one of the safest and most dependable nuclear facilities on the grid. And we anticipate its return with a new identity and a revitalized mission. But Microsoft wasn't alone. It was like watching dominoes fall in reverse. Instead of nuclear plants shutting down, tech giants started lining up to build new ones. Amazon committed over $500 million to nuclear projects, including a massive investment in a company called X Energy. They're planning to get up to 5,000 megawatts of nuclear power, enough to power several million homes. Matt Garman, CEO of Amazon Web Services, explained their reasoning. One of the fastest ways to address climate change is by transitioning our society to carbon-free energy sources. And nuclear energy is both carbon-free and able to scale. Then Google dropped a bombshell. They signed the world's first corporate agreement to buy electricity from something called the Small Modular Reactors, or SMRs. These are like nuclear power's iPhone moment, smaller, supposedly safer and faster to build than traditional reactors. Michelle Terrell from Google said, the grid needs new electricity sources to support AI technologies that are powering major scientific advances. The nuclear prophets. But perhaps the most interesting character in this story is Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. This guy has become like the prophet of nuclear-powered AI. Back in 2021, Sam Altman said something that now sounds incredibly prophetic. Fundamentally, today in the world, the two limiting commodities you see everywhere are intelligence, which we are trying to work on with AI and energy. He didn't just talk about it, he put his money where his mouth is. Altman invested $375 million in a nuclear fusion company called Helion Energy, and he's the chairman of Oklo, a nuclear startup developing advanced reactors. At the World Economic Forum in 2024, Altman made a statement that should have sent shivers down everyone's spine. There's no way to get there without a breakthrough. He was talking about the need for energy breakthroughs to support AI's future. Then there's Bill Gates, who's been quietly working on nuclear power for over a decade through his company TerraPower. Gates has invested over $1 billion in building an advanced nuclear reactor in Wyoming. At the groundbreaking ceremony, he said, "This next generation nuclear power plant is a big step towards safe, abundant, zero carbon energy, and it's important for the future of this country that projects like this succeed." The small modular revolution. Now you might be wondering, why don't they just build traditional nuclear plants like we did in 1970s and 80s? Well, there's a problem. Traditional nuclear plants are massive, take decades to build, and cost tens of billions of dollars. We don't have that kind of time. This is where small modular reactors come in. Think of them as the Tesla Model S of nuclear power. High-tech, more efficient, and designed for mass production. Instead of building a gigantic reactor on site, SMRs are built in factories and shipped to their location. They're designed to be intrinsically safe, meaning they can't melt down even if everything goes wrong. Some use innovative technologies like helium gas cooling or liquid sodium, which sounds scary but is actually much safer than traditional water-cooled reactors. X Energy, the company Amazon invested in, has created something called TRISO fuel, uranium kernels wrapped in ceramic and graphite layers. It's so stable that you literally cannot make it melt down, no matter what you do to it. The race against time. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. AI's energy needs are growing exponentially right now, but these nuclear solutions won't be ready for years. Goldman Sachs calculated that we need 85 to 90 gigawatts of new nuclear capacity to meet all the projected AI power demands by 2030. But less than 10% of that will actually be available by then. It's like trying to solve world hunger by promising to invent a revolutionary farming technique that won't be ready for another decade. This creates a fascinating paradox. The tech companies are making these massive nuclear investments not because nuclear can solve their immediate problems, but because they're essentially betting that AI development will continue growing exponentially for the next 10 to 20 years. Microsoft's 3 Mile Island reactor won't come back online until 2028. Google's small modular reactors won't start producing power until 2030 at the earliest. Amazon's nuclear projects are targeting the late 2030s. The environmental paradox. Here's something that might blow your mind. AI is supposed to help us solve climate change, but it's actually making it worse right now. Microsoft and Google have both seen their greenhouse gas emissions skyrocket in recent years. Google's emissions are up 48% compared to 2019, and Microsoft's are up 29% compared to 2020. This is largely due to their AI expansion. Sasha Lucioni, a researcher studying AI's environmental impact, puts it bluntly: we are accelerating the climate crisis. But here's the twist. If these nuclear plants work out, AI could become completely carbon neutral while continuing to grow. Nuclear power produces virtually zero emissions during operation. It's like switching from gas-guzzling truck to an electric vehicle, except the scale is enormous. The global competition. This isn't just about American companies anymore. China already operates the world's first commercial small modular reactor, while American SMR designs are still in development. China's population also uses significantly less energy per person than Americans, which could give them an advantage in managing AI's energy demands. Over 80 different SMR designs are being developed across 18 countries. The global market potential is estimated at $300 billion by 2040. Whoever cracks the code on cheap, reliable nuclear power could dominate the AI economy of the future. What could go wrong? Of course, this whole plan could backfire spectacularly. Nuclear projects are famous for going way over budget and taking much longer than planned. Remember, we're talking about an industry that hasn't built much new capacity in decades. There's also the public relations problem. Despite being statistically much safer than fossil fuels, nuclear power still terrifies many people. And what happens if there's an accident at one of these new reactors? It could set back the entire nuclear renaissance by decades. But perhaps the biggest risk is economic. What if AI development slows down or hits some fundamental barriers? These companies would be stuck with billion-dollar nuclear investments powering technology that never lived up to the hype. The future scenarios. So what does the future hold? I see three possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Of course, the nuclear renaissance succeeds wildly. By 2040, small modular reactors are powering data centers around the world. AI continues its exponential growth without carbon emissions, and nuclear power experiences its first major revival since the 1970s. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2. Nuclear development hits roadblocks, but AI growth continues. We end up burning massive amounts of natural gas and coal to power AI, accelerating climate change and potentially triggering energy crisis. Scenario 3. Something completely unexpected happens. Maybe we crack fusion power, or AI development plateaus, or some entirely new energy technology emerges. But here's what I find most fascinating about this entire story. We are witnessing the collision of two of humanity's most powerful technologies, artificial intelligence and nuclear power. Both were born from mid-20th century scientific breakthroughs. Both have the potential to transform civilization, and both carry enormous risks alongside their benefits. Sam Altman was right when he said there's no way to get to advanced AI without an energy breakthrough. The question is whether we can pull off this nuclear renaissance in time, or whether AI's exponential hunger for power will force us into some much less pleasant alternatives. What do you think? Are we on the verge of a nuclear-powered AI utopia, or are we setting ourselves up for an energy catastrophe? Let me know in the comments below. The decisions being made in corporate boardrooms and government offices right now will determine whether the AI revolution continues to accelerate or hits a wall made of electrical grid limitations. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.